Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, you do a lot. You do a lot. So I literally didn't even know you worked at Creative Justice until we were like, oh, we're about to spotlight Moni. Tell us a little bit about your background and, what got you to Creative Justice.
Yeah, so my background is, born and raised in Seattle. I'm a musician. That's my personal practice. I'm a DJ. I have a DJ collective, and I'm a singer, and have been doing that for a very long time. The other part of my life has been arts programming for young people, and so what cultivated me into creative justice essentially was like my curatorial work around the city, being involved with different like youth-led organizations and supporting their arts programming. And so when Creative Justice reached out to me and said, hey, we're expanding and we're about to pivot into some different things, and we think that you would be perfect in this position, I hopped on it.
Well, you know what? I just gotta say, knowing a bit of you and your reach and community, man, shout out to you, Moni, because you've been doing it for a long time, and I never really got the chance to just publicly give you your flowers.
Oh.
But let me tell you, you are killing the game, and your DJ skills are top notch. Okay, for
Thank
those
you.
of you who don't know about Moni's DJing, let me tell you. Moni's putting it down.
I
So,
appreciate you.
so how are you able to kind of infuse all the things that you've done into your role at Creative Justice? Tell us about what it is you do there and how you bring that history to the role.
Absolutely. So, I always tell people that my life's practice is my work. There is probably no separation there, right? So, even if I wasn't in the institutions that I have been involved in, I would still be doing my life's work, which is essentially creating healing, engaged art spaces for young people so that they can imagine and cultivate whatever dreams that they have for themselves, right? And to be thinking about what systemically impacts them and inhibits them from being able to imagine and dream, right? So I'm just trying to create space to do that. And that's essentially what I get to do at Creative Justice as education director. Most specifically, I dream up the base program, which looks like programming 2 times a week with up to 24 young people between the ages of about 14 to 22. And they get to come into our doors and they get to eat and they get to make healing engaged art with different mentor artists. And so I have a staff of really incredible artists from around the city who help cultivate art skills with young people. Mm-hmm.
This is just beautiful because when we talk about, I know Nikita has said it so many times, treating the whole person. We've been saying it in community all the time. Like if we could just have the resources to do the work, we would be able to see a decrease in gun violence, a decrease in young folks going into institutions of prison systems, whatever, jail, juvenile detention, whatever it is, we would actually see a decrease. But that's the work of Creative Justice. And I think one of the things that I love so much is that it's so steeply rooted in community that you guys have this network of artists you can call on to really allow the youth to create, to do what they do. And it's healing, it's therapy. Tell us about some of the impacts that you've been able to experience as educational director while doing this work.
Yeah, the impacts. That's so funny. I was answering this question the other week. I think probably for my therapist, honestly, right? We were talking about like it's really hard to measure success in our work, especially when you're doing work with young people where you are actually cultivating spaces for them to just exist in, right? There's no marker that says, oh, this person is a successful person, or they're not, or this program is successful. It's like, how do I keep you alive? And how do I keep you alive? Or how do I contribute to keeping you alive between Tuesday and Thursday? And what does that mean for you to be able to go home to your families? What does that mean for us to be able to provide an actual monetary stipend for you to be able to show up and do work and do art and be in a space that feels like when the world is not safe for you, that you can come in here and be fed and be loved on, right? So when we talk about holistic healing and we talk about holistic art engagement, I think that creative justice is consistently, and we are always recreating because we're always learning from our young people, like how do we create infrastructure so that we're thinking about things systemically, so that we're not only addressing violence or safety or security after things have already been done, but how do we create an infrastructure to where young people can dream and believe and be in space so that they can go into the world and create whatever world that they want.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that, because I think so much of the programs that maybe they failed us. I'm still, it's the jury's still out on that,
Yeah.
because we talk about a lot of institutions originally going after programming funding. Like,
Mhm.
we need more programs, we need more programs, but they came with those exact things that you discussed that are not there, like these markers. This is what success looks like.
Yeah.
You got to have this many people in the program. You got to have this many people go through the program and end on the other side and give them a certificate. Like, all of these ideas about, you know what I'm saying, that
Yeah.
are really limiting and create a little bit more barriers. So we need more open-ended ways of connecting with youth and young people. And I think that I really am inspired by the way that creative justice has centered the voices of young people, just as you talk about learning from them when you're thinking about these systems that you want to put in place, and about institutionally how you guys are going to do business. Allowing their voices to be a part of that is so key. I think that's really probably a bit of the magic. But you also talk about this kind of like family that is created there. How is it for the young folks to be connecting with other young people like themselves, coming on a weekly basis, 2 times a week, to really connect with each other? Because I think that that's also a part of that healing that's necessary.
Yeah, I think well, a lot of the youth that we partner with are systems involved, court involved, young people who oftentimes when they're going through those systems, they can be really isolating. And you can feel, and as a young person, like I often felt at many times like nobody's going through exactly what I'm going through. And then you get into a room with a bunch of different people who look exactly like you or have similar shared lived experiences as you, and you're like, oh, we going through the same thing. So like, how do we collectively, it's just about like really tapping in with young people so that they understand that there can be a collective understanding about something, right? And even my liberation feels really personal to me, but I also think about what impacts I have collectively and how do I contribute to this collective narrative. And so I think that we are oftentimes able to create this space where young people are able to recognize themselves as not like solitary human beings, but like, how are we all a part of this thing? And I think the thing that's really special about creative justice, like you said, like, I'm from Seattle, so I done been through these programs. I have led these programs. I have, answered to those grants that are, these are the markers of success and things. And I think that's what's different about creative justice and why I love it is that we are really focused on liberation. And my liberation might not be your liberation. And so what does it mean to define that for ourselves? And what does it mean to find that personal liberation and that personal freedom? And how do you let that rub off onto your community, onto your loved ones, onto your family when life doesn't feel like that?
I love that. Liberation. Because for me, it's a cascading effect. Because it is no matter how many years we've worked toward liberation, the idea that it's objective, it means something different to me than it does to you. That cascading ideology needs to be implemented in our society, because unfortunately, one of the things that I also feel was kind of like stagnant in terms of some of the movements of the past. I always think about the impact the Black Panthers had, but it was just because they were injecting new ideology into society at large. Like, hey, what would happen if you just allow Black folks to do what they do and lead in their communities, right? And the ideas about, liberating these communities that have oftentimes been, subjugated, they've been oppressed, they've been all of these things. We know that because it's been societally bound, right? Well, what if we just break those chains of it? And the ideas that you're talking about, this being objective to every person, is really key to this, because that's the stuff that I love, because it's like new ideology. Let it cascade down into the general pool of society so people can begin to understand that, because I think that's something that's really misunderstood right now, Moni. And I love that young people are able to recognize it for themselves, because we're talking about our leaders now, our leaders in the future. We're talking about creating that generation that understands it.
Yeah.
For you, when you go home at night, you know what I mean, and you're reflecting on your day, what are some of the main things that really pop out to you in terms of how this work is positively impacting your life?
So when I go home every day, I have a 12-year-old. So that's what my life looks like. I mean, that's what my life looks like throughout my day, is thinking about where my 12-year-old is and what he's doing. And so I'm often in this place of just immense gratitude, right? I became a mom super young. I am very young, I feel like, to be in the position that I am, professionally, and even in community, like where I am in community. And so I feel like I'm in immense gratitude all of the time, and giving praise and giving that up, and being at my altar, and working things out, because when people talk about I didn't think that I was going to be here, like that was real life for me, right? And so imagining my life past 18, or imagining my life past 22 didn't feel realistic for me as a really young person. And so I give thanks. The other thing that I think about is, how do I sustain myself? Because this work that we're doing is not like, it's not backbreaking in the way of like physical labor, but it is work that can be defeating, and it is work that can be really hard. And I think that you have to have a personal practice of being able to create boundaries for yourself that feel like you're taking care of yourself, that feel like you're safe within yourself, right? And so I'm constantly thinking about, how do I sustain myself in my practice so that I can show up for this work full, and that I don't feel like my cup is being depleted, and that I don't feel like people are reaching into my cup. And that is exactly what I try to impart into my young people, is like, you deserve to have a full life in which you feel full, to where when you pour out of your cup, it's by choice. It is never by circumstance, and it shouldn't be, because we should be developing practices with you so that you can sustain yourself.
Snaps all around. Moni, this is just a great conversation. I know you and I could have a whole special on this. I would love to go further, because creative justice is doing amazing work. And I think because it is such a unique approach, oftentimes the ways that I've heard now you speak about it, Nikita speak about it in the past, is that it takes something for people to get, like, they're trying to grasp it still, like, wow, this is so dope how you're doing this, and how you're disrupting the system with creativity as a marker and as a pathway. So I know there's people out there in the audience that want to know more and want to connect with creative justice. Look right there and let them know how they can do so, and how they can connect with you.
So what's really interesting is that this Thursday we do have a culminating project event. So base program, we work for about 12 to 16-week sessions. Our young people create these beautiful works of art, whether it's music, whether it's visual art, soon come some theater stuff, right? So on Thursday at the Link, on about 20th and, was it 20th and Union? At the Link, we'll be having our Say Something or Something to Say show, where our young people are exploring the question of, if you were able to send a message to the world, what would that be? So we have different works of art. Our young people have been working with clay this past session in our visual arts, also printing supplies, and then we'll have some live performances at 6:00. Slide through. We in the Central. It's gonna be food. It's gonna be like drinks, and it's gonna be cute. And all of our young people are gonna be there. We're partnering with beloved King County to really answer some important questions around, what does safety mean for young people? What does safety mean for communities? So you'll see a lot of those themes throughout the space, and also have opportunity to talk with young people about exactly what that means.
So there we go. Collaborations all around. Moni, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to the event on Thursday. I'm gonna move some things in my calendar so I can be there. 6 p.m. at the Link. Moni, thank you again for being with us. If people want to just tap in with you, what you got going on, how do they follow you?
Yeah, so what I would say is, tap into creativejusticenorthwest.org. If you want to reach me about anything that has to do with programming, my email's right there. Tap into the staff page. I'm all over the internet. Catch me where you can. I'm always in the CD to the South End. So just catch me.
There we go. Pull up. I love that
Yeah.
mentality. Moni, thank you so much for being with me today. And thank
Yeah.
you really incredibly huge thanks for all the work you're doing for our young people. It's so necessary. I just really appreciate you bringing your lived experience to bear in this way. It's just a beautiful thing to witness.
I so appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.